My name is Megan Collins. I'm 31 years old, and I thought I was living a fairy tale until a doctor looked at my ultrasound and told me that my husband is a total stranger. The smell of expensive espresso and sandalwood cologne always filled our kitchen in the mornings. It was the scent of success, the scent of a perfect life. Liam stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse, his tailored suit jacket draped over the chair. He looked like a man who had everything under control. "Eat your spinach omelet, Megs," he said, not turning around. "The iron is crucial for the baby's development this week. 12 weeks is a milestone." I looked down at the green mass on my plate. I wasn't hungry. My stomach felt like it was full of fluttering moths, partly from the pregnancy and partly from the way Liam always knew exactly what I was doing without looking. "I'm eating, Liam, I promise," I murmured, tucking a strand of my blonde hair behind my ear. He finally turned, flashing that $1,000,000 smile, the one that had convinced me to marry him 3 years ago. He walked over and pressed a firm, lingering kiss to my forehead. His hands, usually so warm, felt oddly cold against my skin. "I'll drive you to the clinic," he said. "I wouldn't miss the 12-week scan for anything." But 10 minutes into the drive, his phone chirped. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. I saw the flash of an emergency notification from his architecture firm. "Damn it," he hissed, hitting the steering wheel. "The Hudson Project. Megs, I have to go in. I'll drop you at the door, but I might not make it inside in time for the start of the scan." "It's okay, Liam," I said, feeling a strange, sudden prickle of relief. The clinic was warm, smelling of lavender and sterilized air. When the nurse called Megan Collins 10 minutes early, I didn't wait. I walked into the exam room, adjusted my paper gown, and waited for Dr. Thorne. I didn't know that in 15 minutes, my entire world would catch fire. The ultrasound room was dim, lit only by the glowing blue light of the monitors. Dr. Thorne, a man with salt and pepper hair and deep-set eyes that had seen 1,000 births, squeezed a dollop of clear gel onto my stomach. It was ice cold, making me flinch against the crinkling paper of the exam table. "Deep breath, Megan," he said softly, sliding the transducer over my skin. I stared at the screen, waiting for that familiar flickering image. There it was, the silhouette of a tiny life. My heart swelled, a lump forming in my throat. Is that the heartbeat?" Dr. Thorne didn't answer. He moved the wand back and forth, his brow furrowing. He zoomed in, then out, his eyes darting between the screen and my abdomen. He wasn't looking at the baby anymore. He was looking at the area just above my hip. "Megan," he said, his voice dropping to a cautious whisper, "you have a scar here on your right side. You told me during your intake that it was from an emergency appendectomy 3 years ago, correct?" "Yes," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Liam's brother performed it. It was a private clinic. Why?" Dr. Thorne stopped the wand. He looked at the door, then back at me. He leaned in close, so close I could smell the faint scent of peppermint on his breath. "I'm looking at your internal imaging right now, Megan. You still have your appendix. It's perfectly healthy." A cold shiver raced down my spine. "That's impossible. I was in the hospital for a week. Liam's staying by my side every night. He said—" "He lied," Thorne interrupted, his voice urgent. He pointed to a small, dark, metallic-looking sliver on the screen, embedded deep in the tissue near my hip. "This is a subcutaneous RFID transmitter, a tracking device, and next to it is a slow-release reservoir for hormone suppressants. It's been empty for about 4 months." The room felt like it was spinning. The walls seemed to pulse with the rhythm of my own panicked blood. "I don't understand. We've been doing IVF for months. The injections, the hormones Lean gave me." "Megan, look at the measurements,"
He pointed to the fetus. "This baby isn't 12 weeks old, it's 16. You were already pregnant when you started those IVF treatments. The vitamins and shots Liam has been giving you weren't to help you conceive. They were to keep your body under a specific chemical lock and key." He suddenly stood up and walked to the door, clicking the heavy deadbolt into place. He turned back to me, his face grim. "I've seen your husband on the news, the star architect, but I spent 20 years in medical ethics. I know his face from somewhere else, a research lab that was shut down for illegal human trials. Megan, you need to listen to me very carefully. You aren't his wife. You're his project." Outside in the hallway, I heard the heavy, rhythmic thud of expensive leather shoes. Thump, thump, thump. My heart stopped. I knew that walk. Liam was here.
Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the small room like a gavel. My breath hitched, caught in a throat that suddenly felt lined with glass. Dr. Thorne moved with a speed that defied his age. With a flick of his wrist, he cleared the measurements from the screen and pulled up a generic, static image of a healthy 12-week ultrasound. "Get dressed, fast," he hissed, grabbing a small, slim object from his desk drawer, a burner phone, and shoving it into the pocket of my discarded jeans. I scrambled to pull my clothes on, my fingers shaking so violently I nearly ripped the zipper. I had just buttoned my pants when Dr. Thorne unlocked the door. Liam stood there, the picture of a worried, doting husband. His silk tie was slightly loosened, and a few strands of his dark hair were out of place, a calculated look of, "I rushed here for you." "Sorry I'm late," Liam said, his voice smooth as honey, yet it made my skin crawl. He walked straight to me, wrapping an arm around my waist. He felt like a predator claiming his kill. "Did I miss the heartbeat?" "Just barely," Dr. Thorne said, his voice steady, professional. I marveled at his composure. "But everything looks exactly as it should for 12 weeks. Megan was just about to head out." Liam's eyes flickered to the monitor, then to Dr. Thorne. There was a microsecond of silence, a cold, analytical beat, before he smiled. "Wonderful. Thank you, doctor. I've been so anxious about this pregnancy. Megan is everything to me." He squeezed my side. It was supposed to be an affectionate gesture, but all I could feel was the spot where Dr. Thorne said the tracking device was buried. I felt like a ticking bomb. "Ready to go, honey?" Liam asked, looking down at me. "Ready," I managed to whisper. My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. The walk to the car felt like a mile. Every person we passed in the hallway felt like a witness to a kidnapping that hadn't happened yet. We stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, and for the first time, the light felt blinding and cruel. As Liam opened the passenger door of his sleek black SUV, the smell of leather and that familiar sandalwood cologne hit me. It used to be the scent of safety. Now it was the scent of a trap. "You're very quiet, Megs," Liam said, as he pulled into traffic, his eyes fixed on the road. "The doctor didn't say anything else, did he? Anything unusual?" I looked out the window, watching the familiar streets of the city blur by. My reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, a pale blonde woman with wide, terrified eyes. "No," I lied, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Just that I need to keep taking my vitamins. I'm just tired, Liam. It's been a long morning." "Good," he said, his hand reaching over to rest on my thigh. "Because I have a surprise for you when we get home, a special dinner to celebrate, just the three of us." The three of us. He meant him, me, and the project inside me. I reached into my pocket and felt the hard, cold plastic of the burner phone. It was the only real thing I had left. The penthouse felt different tonight. The polished marble floors and minimalist furniture, which I once thought were the height of elegance, now felt like the sterile walls of a laboratory. Liam was in the kitchen, the rhythmic thwack-thwack of his chef's knife against the cutting board echoing through the open floor plan. He was searing steaks. The metallic, bloody scent of the raw meat made my stomach churn. "Go lay down for a bit, honey," Liam called out, his voice airy and light. "I'll bring you a glass of that organic pomegranate juice once the steaks are resting." "Thanks, Liam. I think I will," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I walked toward our bedroom, but as soon as I heard the sizzle of meat hitting the hot pan, I pivoted. I slipped into his home office, clicking the door shut with an agonizingly slow movement to avoid the latch snapping. The room smelled of old books and expensive ink. I went straight for his desk. It was perfectly organized. Prototypes of buildings, blueprints for the Hudson Project, and architectural awards. I started pulling at the drawers. Most were locked, but I remembered the spare key he kept inside a hollowed-out copy of The Fountainhead on the bookshelf. My fingers fumbled with the key, finally sliding it into the bottom drawer. It popped open. Inside weren't blueprints. There were stacks of medical journals, all of them featuring articles by a man named Dr. William Calthorpe. I flipped to the author's photo at the back. It was Liam. He looked younger, his hair shorter, but those same piercing, calculating eyes stared back at me. I kept digging. Behind a false back in the drawer, I found a small, heavy digital safe. The code. I tried our anniversary. Nothing. I tried his birthday. Nothing. Then a chilling thought hit me. I tried the date of my appendectomy. Click. The safe door swung open. Inside was a thick black leather binder labeled Project Nightingale, Subject 02. I opened it and my breath hitched. It was a chronological log of my life for the last 3 years. Every meal I'd eaten, every vitamin he'd administered, and detailed notes on my mood and physical reactions. Day 842. Subject 02 shows increased receptivity to hormonal load. Insemination successful prior to suppression cycle. Commencing stage 4 observation. He hadn't just been monitoring the pregnancy. He had been programming me. He knew I was pregnant before I did because he had planned the exact moment it would happen, all while pretending we were struggling with infertility to keep me dependent on his help. A heavy shadow fell across the office door's frosted glass. The handle turned, but the lock held. "Megan?" Liam's voice was right outside, low and vibrating with a new, sharp edge. "You thought you were napping. Why's the door locked, sweetheart?" I froze. The binder clutched to my chest, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would bruise my ribs. My blood turned to ice. I scrambled to shove the binder back into the safe, my fingernails scraping against the metal. I clicked the safe shut, slid the false back into place, and jammed the drawer shut just as the lock rattled again. "Megan, open the door." The sweetheart was gone from his voice. It was replaced by a clinical, cold authority. I grabbed a random architectural book from the shelf, something thick and heavy, and unlocked the door. I pulled it open, forcing a sleepy, confused smile onto my face, even though my knees were shaking. Liam stood there, still holding a silver tray with a glass of dark red juice. His eyes didn't look at my face first. They swept the room, cataloging the position of every pen, every paper. Finally, they landed on me. I couldn't sleep," I stammered, holding up the book. "I wanted to look at some of your old designs. I think I accidentally hit the lock button when I leaned against the door. I'm sorry, Liam. Pregnancy brain, I guess." He didn't smile. He stepped into the room, forcing me to back up. He set the tray down on the desk, right above the hidden safe. "You shouldn't be in here, Megan. The dust from the old models isn't good for your lungs, and you look flushed."
He reached out, his thumb tracing my jawline. His skin felt like marble, perfect and freezing. I think you're overstimulated. The city is too loud, too chaotic for you right now. I'm fine, really. I've already packed your bags, he interrupted. His voice was a soft blade. I've called the firm. I'm taking a leave of absence. We're going to the cabin in Blackwood Creek, just for a few months until the project is further along. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The cabin. It was 3 hours away, nestled in a valley with no cell service and no neighbors for miles. If he got me there, I would never come back. I would just be Subject 02 until he was done with me. That sounds lovely, I lied, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Drink your juice, Megan, he said, gesturing to the glass. Every drop. We leave in 20 minutes. I picked up the glass. The liquid was thick and smelled unnaturally sweet. I knew with a terrifying certainty that there was more than just pomegranate in that glass. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man who had built a life out of lies, a man who was currently watching me to see if his subject would obey. I took a sip, letting the cold liquid coat my tongue, praying I could find a way to pour the rest out before the world went black.
I forced a cough, a deep hacking sound that made my shoulders shake. As I did, I let my hand slip. The heavy glass tilted, and the dark red liquid splashed across the front of my white silk blouse and onto the hardwood floor. Oh, Liam, I'm so sorry, I gasped, dropping the glass. It didn't break. It was heavy-duty acrylic, another small detail I'd never noticed before. Liam's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed to slits. He looked at the mess, then at me. The silence stretched until I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Messy, he said quietly. He took a step toward me, and I instinctively flinched. He noticed. A small, dark smirk touched his lips. Go change. Wear the gray tracksuit. We leave in 5 minutes. Don't bother cleaning it up. I'll have the service crew handle it while we're gone. I ran to the bedroom, my heart thundering. I didn't change into the tracksuit. I threw on a thick hoodie, making sure Dr. Thorne's burner phone was tucked deep into the inner pocket. I grabbed a pair of sturdy hiking boots. If I was going into the woods, I wasn't going in slippers. The drive was a descent into a nightmare. As the skyscrapers of the city were replaced by the jagged, skeletal silhouettes of winter trees, the air inside the SUV grew heavy. Liam didn't speak. He just drove, his hands at 10 and 2, his gaze fixed on the winding mountain road. Every time I checked the signal on my phone, carefully under the cover of my sleeve, the bars dropped. 3, 2, 1. No service. By the time we pulled up to the cabin, the sun was a bruised purple smudge on the horizon. The cabin wasn't a cozy wood and stone retreat. It was a modern fortress of glass and steel, perched on the edge of a ravine. High fences topped with black wire snaked through the trees around the perimeter. "We're here," Liam said, killing the engine. The silence that followed was absolute. No birds, no wind, just the ticking of the cooling engine. He walked around to my side and opened the door. He didn't offer a hand. He grabbed my upper arm. His grip was like a vice. As he led me toward the front door, I saw a small, blinking red light above the frame. A camera. Not for burglars. It was pointed directly at the path from the car. "Liam, it's freezing out here," I said, my voice trembling. "Can we just go inside?" "In a moment," he said, stopping me on the porch. He turned me to face the dark, endless woods. "Look at it, Megan. Total isolation. No distractions, no helpful doctors, just the research and the result." He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear, sending a jolt of pure terror through me. I know you didn't drink the juice, Megan. I saw the way you spilled it. Don't try it again. Here, there are no accidents, only variables I haven't accounted for yet." He pressed his thumb against the biometric scanner on the door. It hissed open like a pressurized chamber. He nudged me inside, and the heavy steel door clicked shut with a sound that felt final. I was no longer a wife. I was a prisoner in a high-tech lab, and the man I loved was the one holding the key. The interior of the cabin was even worse than the outside. It wasn't a home, it was a suite. Polished concrete floors, white walls, and a glass-walled medical bay that looked like a high-end ICU. Liam pointed to a sleek gray sofa. "Sit," he commanded. He walked over to a stainless steel counter and began lining up small glass vials. The sound of them clinking together was like a funeral knell. "Liam, please," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Whatever this is, we can just go home. We can forget the research. We can just be a family." He stopped. He turned slowly, a syringe in his hand, the needle gleaming under the LED track lighting. For a moment, his face contorted, not with anger, but with a terrifying kind of pity. "You still don't get it, Megan. There is no us. There is the genetic lineage, and there is the vessel. You were chosen for your resilience, your blonde hair, your perfect health markers. Dr. Thorne, well, he was a variable I had to eliminate." My heart stopped. "What did you do to him?" "He's been reported for medical malpractice," Liam said with a shrug. "His career is over, and yours, Megan, is just beginning. You're going to stay here, you're going to be quiet, and you're going to give me the perfect specimen." He stepped toward me. This was it. I looked at the architecture award sitting on the side table, a heavy, jagged shard of crystal shaped like a skyscraper. Then I looked at the red pull station by the kitchen door. During the 3-hour drive, I hadn't just been crying, I had been visualizing the blueprints of this place based on the photos I'd seen in his office. I knew where the sensors were. "I won't let you," I said, my voice suddenly cold. "You don't have a choice," he snarled, lunging for my arm. I dove to the left, my boots sliding on the concrete. I didn't go for the door, it was deadbolted electronically. I grabbed the crystal award and swung it with every ounce of terror-fueled strength I had. It didn't hit him, it hit the master control panel for the fire suppression system on the wall. The glass shattered, sparking wires hissed. I reached up and pulled the fire alarm. A piercing, ear-splitting shriek filled the house. High-pressure mist began to spray from the ceiling, turning the room into a blurred white haze. "Megan!" Liam screamed, dropping the syringe as he tried to shield his eyes from the chemical mist. In the chaos, I didn't run for the front door, I ran for the kitchen, grabbed a heavy cast iron pan, and smashed the floor-to-ceiling glass window facing the ravine. The glass didn't shatter into shards, it spiderwebbed. I hit it again, and again. On the third hit, the panel gave way. I leaped through the jagged opening, landing hard on the frozen dirt outside. I didn't look back. I pulled the burner phone from my pocket. It finally showed 1 bar of SOS service. I sprinted into the black maw of the woods, the sound of Liam's enraged screaming fading behind the roar of the alarm. My feet hit the uneven ground, branches clawing at my face and my blonde hair, but I didn't feel the pain. I only felt the frantic beat of 2 hearts, mine and the baby's, both fighting to stay alive. The woods were a labyrinth of shadows and freezing air. Every breath felt like I was swallowing needles, my lungs burning as I scrambled over rotted logs and through brambles that tore at my hoodie. Behind me, the muffled wail of the cabin's alarm was being swallowed by the vast silence of the mountain. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to go down. Gravity was my only map.
I hit a patch of black ice and went down hard, my shoulder slamming into a trunk. I gasped, clutching my stomach instinctively. "Please be okay. Please stay with me," I whispered to the life inside. I pulled out the burner phone. 1 bar. It flickered like a dying candle. I pressed the emergency call button. 911, what is your emergency? The voice was faint, crackling with static, but it was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. "My name is Megan Collins," I sobbed, huddled in the hollow of a tree. "I've been kidnapped. I'm in the Blackwood Creek Mountains, near the glass house on the ravine. My husband, he's dangerous. Please, help me." "Stay on the line, Megan. We're tracking the GPS." The signal cut. The screen went black. Dead. I sat in the dark, the cold seeping into my bones, listening, and then I heard it, the crunch of boots on frozen leaves. It wasn't the frantic pace of someone searching, it was the slow, rhythmic stride of someone who knew exactly where their prey was. "Megan," Liam's voice drifted through the trees, calm and terrifyingly reasonable. "You're going to catch pneumonia. Think of the baby. Come back inside and we can talk about this." A beam of a high-powered flashlight swept through the trees, a predatory eye searching for me. I pressed my back against the rough bark, holding my breath until my chest ached. He was close, so close I could hear the rustle of his jacket. "I'm not angry," he lied. I could hear the smirk in his voice. "I just need to check your vitals. You've spiked your cortisol levels, Megan. It's bad for the data." I looked down at my feet. A heavy, jagged stone lay by my boot. I reached for it, my fingers numb. If he found me, I wouldn't go quietly. I was done being a subject. Suddenly, a new sound broke the night. A distant, rhythmic thump, thump, thump of rotors. Then the faint, wailing herald of sirens far below on the mountain pass. Liam stopped. The flashlight beam wavered. "Megan?" His voice had lost its calm. It was sharp now, jagged with panic. I didn't stay hidden. I stood up, the stone in my hand, and screamed with every bit of air left in my body. "Here! I'm here!" Liam lunged toward my voice, his face a mask of rage in the moonlight. But the forest was no longer his lab. Blue and red lights began to dance against the canopy of the trees as state trooper SUVs bounced up the rugged access trail. I saw him freeze as the first spotlight hit him. "Drop the weapon," a voice boomed over a megaphone. Liam looked at me one last time, a look of pure clinical disappointment, before he was tackled into the dirt. 6 months later. The air in the coastal town was salt-crusted and warm, a world away from the sterile marble of the penthouse. I sat on a wooden bench overlooking the Atlantic, my blonde hair cropped short, the sun warming my neck. The headlines had stayed in the news for weeks. Talented architect revealed as disgraced researcher, William Calthorpe. They had found the other files in his safe. I wasn't the first subject, but the police told me I was the first one to make it out. Beside me, the stroller creaked. I looked down into the sleeping face of my daughter. She had my eyes, but more importantly, she had her own future. She wasn't a specimen or a result. She was just a baby. I pulled out a sketchbook from my bag, not a medical log, but a book of my own drawings. I began to sketch the horizon, the line where the sea met the sky. For 3 years, I had been living in a story written by a monster. Today, I finally started writing my own.